guys, welcome back to Little Mitch Stitches. I'm Stephanie and I am coming to you today from a very warm, muggy Long Island, New York. It is a hot one today. We are having a bit of a heat wave, not the most conducive to knitting or crocheting. Last I talked to you, I was finishing up crochet in May and I was still working on my granny square blanket. I think I have made negative progress since that video. I was working on the border. I am almost done. Oh, no, I wasn't quite to the border yet. I was still working in the blue section, the last color I was doing before the border. So I started my border and then I ripped it back because I didn't like how it was coming out. So that's gone a little forward, come a little back, and now it is way too hot to work on. So even though this is fingering weight and very open, it's still a lot of fabric on my lap. There's at least 7 full skeins of yarn in here, probably more, definitely more. It's giant. It's just too much to have on my lap and work on. Maybe once it's not quite so muggy anymore, I can work on that again. As promised, I have been working on my Affiknity cardigan, which I have not touched since April. The last time I worked on it was during the knit-a-thon. It has sat dormant since then because I was focusing on my crochet projects pretty much. So the Affiknity cardigan is a sweater pattern by Patty Lyons. She designed it as one of her sweater class knit-alongs that started in, I think, October or November, and I am of course still working on mine. She's currently doing her spring knit along, which I did not participate in because I'm still working on this one. I thought about it, but let me finish one before I start another. So the pattern is a unisex cardigan or pullover. So I chose to do the cardigan one because I figured I would probably get a little more wear out of it. It is a worsted weight, heavily cabled sweater. It is beautiful and it has pockets, which mom life, it's a must. So this is the back of my sweater. So you can really see the cable's the best on here. And it's also the only part I think that is completely blocked. These cables are just amazing. She sells it as an adult sweater, and there's also a kids version. I think the kids version starts around size 7, maybe 6. I bought that also because I have this dream of doing matching family sweaters, minus Kyle because he doesn't want one. Anyway, so I would love to make the boys sweaters. Benji's 1 and Jack's is 3. They're obviously not in the right size for it. So maybe someday they will fit into them, even if I make them now for ahead of time. But I also thought I could possibly downsize the pattern by using maybe a fingering or sport weight yarn if I can figure out gauge and do a lot of math to get it to the right width size, and then I can figure out the lengths from there. So I know I have been working on this sweater while doing videos in and out, but I haven't really talked about it yet. So let's dive in. Here are my swatches. Now you can see that you can't even see the cables in here. I really just use this for measurements. I swatched on a size 6 and a size 7 because I am a loose knitter usually, so I pretty much never get gauge with the called for needle size. But you can see this yarn does not match what I'm knitting with. This is actually the same yarn as this. I had, I think, 10 skeins of this. I think 10 skeins. It was from a friend's D-stash. It isn't a color that really worked for her, and it really isn't a color that worked for me, but I thought maybe it would be a fun blanket for the boys or one of the boys. Actually, I wasn't even pregnant with Benji yet, so I thought it could be a fun blanket for Jax or a potential future baby. It sat in my stash for a while, and I knew Patty was working on this pattern because she kept sharing previews and sneak peeks of the cables, and I loved it and really, really, really wanted to knit it. So being that it was a pandemic and I hadn't worked since March, we didn't really want to be spending money on extra things that we didn't need. And let's face it, I have a huge stash. I know I say this all the time, but I do, and I want to use it and use it up before I go buying tons of other yarn. So I wanted to use what I had, and I had 10 skeins of this yarn that was perfectly usable in the weight that I called for, but in a color that wasn't going to work. No big deal. Let's just dye it. So I dyed the yarn. I think I used, can't remember if I used teal or emerald. I want to say it was a teal color. So I just over dyed it. So you can still see bits of the yellow, and yellow has turned to green, and the blues have become a little more green otherwise. And I love the color. This color is probably a favorite of mine. And so I love that the color is now just a little bit variegated, where you just kind of see more tones rather than multiple different colors everywhere. So I showed you the back of my sweater. That is done. My two fronts, which is where like all the real thinking has to come in, or at least in the beginning of them. The way Patty designed this sweater, this is the bottom of one of the fronts. This is the pocket, and you work it as you're going. So this is the inside of it. I will have to sew it down once I have blocked it. You do have to block the front before you add that part in, I think, if I remember correctly, because now it's been a while since I did that part. So I have to reblock the whole thing, obviously with all my ends in, sew that down, and then the front will be done. The reason this sweater is great right now is because, obviously, as you can see, it is in pieces. So I don't have a ton on my lap at one time. Sweaters done in pieces are underrated because, yes, we have to sew them together, but they're great for the summer because you're just working on a piece of it at a time, and by the end of summer, you have a sweater for the fall. I am working on my sleeve now. I am just starting the cap shaping. So my first sleeve is almost done, and then I have to do the second sleeve, and then I have to get seaming and working on the button band and the shawl collar, which will be great. So I love cables. I don't do them that frequently. I don't know why, because I really do love everything with cables in them. But this has been a great dive back into cables. I've done a lot of plain sweaters, I feel like, lately. So this will be a nice addition to my wardrobe. But the sweater knit along class comes with tons of extra help. Patty runs a very busy Ravelry group, if Ravelry is accessible for you. She is transitioning a lot of her stuff over to her own website and platform. I don't know if the discussion forums for the knit-alongs will happen there too. They might even be doing that already. I'm not participating in the most recent one, so it's worth checking out. But she is so patient in answering people's questions and helping you as best she can over the internet. She has tons of videos linked in her patterns for instructions, be it how to do your gauge swatch, to how to adjust your sweater for a different gauge, which me need it. My gauge does not match. I'm off only very slightly. It didn't make a huge difference. I'm still knitting the size that I would have, I think. I don't remember now because it's been so long. Do a lot of math to make this pattern work for my gauge. So you can see here's from my gauge swatches. Lovely coloring by Jax. But just notes and pages of math and figuring out my waist shaping just to make sure that this sweater was going to fit me. But it's great because Patty gives you guidelines, since certain things have to happen at certain points with the pocket and making the cables line up correctly, because the pocket is integrated into the cables that you're doing, which is amazing. She has so much guidance in the pattern for that. This pattern costs significantly more than a regular pattern would on Ravelry or anywhere on the internet, because it is more of a class than just a pattern. It is meant to be a learning opportunity for anyone. And I'm a pretty advanced knitter, and there's always something new to learn from other people. So it is expensive, but it is worth it because you are getting so much. You're not just getting a pattern. If you want just a pattern, go find some other cable pattern to knit. This is giving you an opportunity to learn how to make your sweater really fit you. Get the best sweater you can. If you don't want to do all that extra work, that's okay. You could just knit the pattern, but you are paying a good amount for just the pattern, which is fine because, I mean, she put months and months of work into this. So, I mean, I think it's deserving, but some people don't like to pay a lot for their patterns or pay at all, which is a whole nother story. One of the best things that I've learned from doing this knit along, and also I had started Patty's sweater Volition. I was not in a place to be knitting that pattern. I needed something easy and brainless, and that one is not easy and brainless. The knitting itself is, but the sweater is a different type of construction. It's a little unique. So I was looking for something that I didn't have to think about at the time, and it really just was not what I should have been working on. So I didn't finish that one. I'm probably going to rip that one out. But that pattern introduced me to this technique, but I didn't really quite get it yet. This pattern, I get it. Patty teaches you how to do sweater mapping, which I had never heard of before. I don't know if Patty is the one that made this up or not, but this is the only place I've ever seen it. So basically, she gives you a blown up version of the schematic, and you write notes on the schematic, and she teaches you how to. She uses her own symbols and techniques of making notes. I'm using what works for me. I'm not necessarily using what she used. But it's basically the whole pattern. I don't need the written instructions. This was my back. So I don't need my written instructions because I have my notes on here of what I need to do and when I need to do it. And then I never need to look at the pattern. And I just tick it off as I go. I'm definitely a paper knitter. I need to write down most things, but at the same time, because this project has so many charts, I'm using my tablet or my phone to keep track of where I am in the chart, and then I'm using paper to keep track of where I am in the pattern. But you could obviously do this digitally too. It's just, for me, it works better on paper. So I have all of my notes here of what to do in each section and how many stitches should be in each row and section, and it is so helpful. I really love it. I can't wait for this sweater to be done. It's going to be perfect for this fall. Maybe for Rhinebeck? I haven't decided if I'm going to Rhinebeck or not. We'll see. Don't know what the guidelines are going to be at the time. Don't know what the state of COVID is going to be. We'll find out. So I might go for a day. If a sweater or cardigan is a little bit more than you're looking for at the moment, but you really like the look of this pattern, Patty also made, I believe, a hat and mittens using some of these cables. So you can also find those patterns for sale. Everything I mentioned here, I will link down below in the description box so that you can find it easily. I have been linking as much as I can to both Ravelry and designers' websites, or another place you can find things, just because I know some people can't go on Ravelry right now, or some people are choosing to not use Ravelry right now. I hope you guys are all enjoying your warm weather knitting. If you are having warm weather right now, it is, like I said, hot, muggy. My hair is getting frizzy, which is kind of crazy because I have all these little post-pregnancy baby hairs, so they just kind of poof everywhere. I hope you are all staying cool, even though it is insanely hot here. It's actually not that hot. It's only in the 80s, but it's very, very humid. We haven't used our air conditioner yet. It's so loud and only really cools off this room because we have a wall unit. It's almost not worth it. We have lots of fans going though. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel down below, and then you can see everything that I'm posting. Don't forget, coming up in just a couple weeks is Tour de Fleece. I am hoping to film a video of me cleaning my wheel because it desperately needs it. I still need to get the supplies. Got to figure out where I even buy those. I'm not even sure. I think I have to go to a hardware store. It's been so long since I've gone anywhere. Because I haven't had a car for a few months. Kyle's car broke down back in December and it wasn't worth fixing anymore. So we've been sharing a car, which means I've mostly just been home, which is part of why I started this, because it's going a little crazy being stuck here all the time with these 2 children. So I finally got a car. I have my first mom minivan vehicle. Jax loves it. I love how much room there is in it, but we are finally able to get out of the house on a more regular basis. So I can take a trip to the hardware store or Home Depot if need be to get what we need. And we're going to get working on this wheel, and then I have to figure out what I want to spin. I don't even know. I have a lot of fiber to get through, just like I have a lot of yarn to get through. I hope you all have a great, cool rest of your day, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye. I don't know how much this mic picks up. You're probably hearing Jax through all of this.